They said he had the answers, but behind the white walls and red rug, something wasn't right. There was a small compound at the edge of Adola Street, where people from the neighborhood often went to, with hope in their eyes and desperation in their pockets. They came because a man named Madu had a room in the flat that he called the Solution Room, the place where destinies changed. The room was bare, no chairs, no TV, nothing, except a red rug and freshly painted walls. Those who came believed it was spiritual, even sacred. But what they didn't know was this: it wasn't holiness that emptied the room. It was Madu who moved all his worn-out furniture outside, stacked along his corridor. He did it every morning whenever he was expecting them, so he could turn his parlor into the Solution Room. And every Saturday, people gathered there like it was a church. But after a while, some began to complain that they weren't seeing their miracles, yet they were paying for them. Madu would simply tell them to be patient, that when their blessings came, they would come big. And so they kept quiet and kept coming with their hopes still high, their pockets full of 200s, 500s, 1000s, peace offerings they called it. But Madu wasn't who he claimed to be. He promised healing, jobs, visas, but all he had was a loud voice and lies rehearsed well enough to sound divine. There was one thing though that never stopped betraying him: his generator. It coughed and died at random, even in the middle of ministration. Every time Madu would excuse himself and go outside to fix it, his sister, Ada, was usually in charge of calming the crowd. But today, the generator died again, and Madu stepped out with that awkward laugh on his face as usual. This time, Ada wasn't around. Ada had stepped away to help a woman find the toilet, so she wasn't there to manage the tension as Madu struggles with the generator. Soon whispers turned to murmurs. Then one client stood up, then another, grumbling about how the generator was always wasting their time. So they followed him. And when they opened the door to the corridor, they saw it. Everything. Old sofas, rusted fan blades, broken shelves, outdated TV, all stacked outside his door. The illusion shattered. They saw the truth. These were Madu's own things, clearly still in use. So their voices rose. Now this won't be the spiritual office. God forbid. 419, Yahoo pastor. Ada heard the shouts and ran back into the room, but it was too late. The corridor was in chaos. Clients stormed out. Some shoved him, some cursed him, some spat on him. Madu stood still, looking at them as they left. He and Ada didn't know what to say to each other. Days passed in silence. Madu and Ada had rearranged the room, but the shame kept them indoors. Then one evening, someone knocked. Ada opened the door and saw a woman in a red dress. Her skin glowed like polished bronze. Her eyes were like storm clouds. She didn't even wait for permission. She just walked in, straight to Madu. Madu stared at her stunned. He asked who she was and what she wanted, and then she spoke. I see you need me. I want to make you an offer. He asked her what offer. She looked around and said, I'll give you back everything you've lost, and more. I'll give you power, real power. In exchange, you'll belong to me. Ada begged him not to agree. How could someone they didn't know from Adam come in demanding and offering things? Something about the woman felt so wrong. But Madu, desperate to recover his fame, ignored Ada and said yes. Within a week, Madu's name returned to the streets. His parlor overflowed again. Even celebrities started to show up. People called him the man with a touch because surprisingly, things began to work for them. And so they trooped in. The room became too small to contain them. Money rolled in for him and fame followed. He became like their street king. But power borrowed always comes with a price. Miriama, as she would come to be known, had her own plans. She had come for the souls of his members. She just needed them to believe in him. The day she had been waiting for finally came. Madu was ministering as usual. Suddenly, the new generator he had gotten went off. Something that hadn't happened in almost 2 months. Confused, he stepped out to check it. That was when Miriama entered, and it began. People screamed as the air in the room thickened. Breathing became difficult. Some collapsed. Others saw visions, dark shadows crawling from the white walls. The red rock caught fire. Miriama laughed madly as their souls rushed into her one after another. Madu returned and froze. Everything he thought he had built crumbled. For some reason, Miriama's power didn't affect him. Maybe because he wasn't there when it started, or maybe because he was her vessel. But then he saw Ada, gasping for breath. Something in him woke up. He ran to her, pulled her into the corridor and locked the door. He held her close and covered his ears from Miriam's piercing laughter. Then, bang, 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 she was at the door. "One more soul, Madu. You owe me one more soul," she screamed. Madu held the door hard. "Know this, Madu. You owe me, and I will be back." Tears fell as he looked at the unconscious Ada. Then it became silent. No more banging, no more screaming. He slowly opened the door, and what he saw sent him to his knees. Dead bodies, the bodies of his deception.